go woke, go broke? Or is it go woke and save some money? Well, apparently some Republicans have found out that when it comes to vehicles, maybe the woke is not too bad.
My.
Okay, so now let's get some details. According to a recent Washington Post article, there are conservatives in deep red areas that have decided to, trade in their gas guzzlers for electric cars. Interesting. So now, in at least 2 deep red Texas counties, EV purchases have now eclipsed the national average. The Washington Post reports, citing a study conducted by S&P Global Mobility. So basically, they're buying more electric cars than they used to. Well, I suppose that's a good thing. Now, the EV market share for new vehicles has hit 8.7% in Collin County and 7.3% in neighboring Denton County, both significantly higher than the 6.2% national average. So, look, there are issues, of course, with electric cars, whether it be the lithium that's required in the batteries and how you're able to charge them and the power grid that supplies the energy for charging. But nonetheless, seems to be going in a more positive direction than just allowing relaxed fuel standards and cars that emit tons and tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. So I'll take it. Now, that said, some Republicans admitted that they did that they bought these electric cars because not because they care so much about the environment, but because they actually wanted to save some money on gas. They also cited things like better performance, style, high-tech features, things like that. For example, Tony Federico is an ex-Marine who votes Republican, a proud Republican. Oh, yeah. But he also leads a local Tesla owners club. Now, look, before Elon Musk basically showed his ass to the world and how much of an idiot he is considered to be someone who is leading on the electric car front. And so, he got a lot of, I think, undue praise for that. But when it comes to the actual technology, it's not, again, great, and it's not really going to get us out of the climate crisis, but every little bit is going to contribute. That's the way that I look at it. That said, you have conservatives now that are like, woke cars? Not so bad. Hey, electric cars, not so bad. It's actually going to save me some money. So now, he told the Post, first, quote, I think selfishly it was, how's this going to help my pocketbook? Hey, look, to be fair, that's a perfectly valid reason to go and do something. Spend money on something that, again, is going to be slightly less worse for the environment than when it comes to, driving gas cars. Okay. So now, Tony also went out of his way, though, to make sure to virtue signal that he is not doing it for the environment. Because, of course. It's not a serious consideration in my purchasing decision. No, not serious at all. You know why? Because, that would be Marxist communism. I am not one of those
Pink-haired communists.
No, I'm not at all. No, I only did it for very, very selfish reasons that it's going to save me money on gas. Because I won't have to do gas. Instead, I could just charge my car. That's right. I only care about me. Screw you. Screw the environment. I do find it hilarious. And I know that's an exaggeration, but how people on the right do have to bend backwards in order to virtue signal that they really don't care about the environment because I've studied, I've cited surveys before where apparently there are men out there on the right wing that think it's feminine to actually care at all about the environment, whether it be using a reusable bag or something like that. It's considered to be girly. Like there's something wrong with a man that actually cares about, not destroying the environment.
Beta male.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so it's funny, but look, hey, the way that I look at it is, for one, it's pretty stupid to sit there and virtue signal like that. And secondly, if you're getting something that is better for your wallet, and again, is a little bit better for the environment, Okay, but well, that's two good things. Whatever. Just take it already. Just take it. Now, there's another one, Kate Allen, also a Republican. She cited that, yeah, once again, she traded in her EV, or I'm sorry, she traded in her gas-powered car for an EV because it's better on, her wallet because gas prices are high. She says, I used to drive a Mercedes-Benz SUV. So this also shows you, by the way, the income brackets that these people are at. Quote, and I went to fill up my gas tank and it was over $4 for premium gas. So I went the very next day and traded it for an electric vehicle. Now, unlike Tony, she did describe the environmental benefits of an EV, again, which are minimal at best, but there. She described it as a quote-unquote bonus. Oh, yeah, hey, if it's okay for the environment, great. Okay, so now this gets to a greater point here. I think that when it comes to people and their spending habits, people will almost always do what helps them most in their own lives, in their own wallets. You want to call it green, you want to, whatever, right? Survival, it doesn't really matter. People are just going to do the things that help them the most when it comes to their pocketbook. So the lesson here should be then, okay, if you want to do things that are more positive towards the environment and get people to do more of those things, then you got to find ways of doing it that aren't going to have such a negative impact on people's lives. And I'm just being real about this because I look, I'd love to take, radical action and, I'll just get rid of all the fossil fuels. Let's do it right now. Okay, but for most people, that's not going to work. For normies, that's not going to work. You've got to find ways to do these things while making people's lives better, not worse. Because if you're going to do something that, yes, is going to help the environment, and I'm all for that, but it's also going to hurt a lot of average people, then who do you think is going to push against it? And by the way, it's going to disproportionately affect the poor. So you also have to keep that in mind. You need to find a way to do these things while also making people's lives better and easier, if at all possible. And in some cases, you can do the right thing while also appealing to people's pocketbooks, and that's going to move more people towards your position. It's just a smart thing. Now, look, a good example of this, by the way, is talking about progressive economic policy, right? The majority of Americans agree with progressive economic policies. You know why? Because it actually helps average people. For example, Medicare for All. Medicare for All is, again, cheaper in the long run, okay? There's no premiums, deductibles, co-pays, saves people money. You have to pay a little bit more in taxes, but you are covered no matter where you go. It's better for the individual. Almost, nearly 50,000 people die every year because they can't get medical coverage in the United States. This is an issue that only happens in this country. And everybody complains about their incredibly high insurance premiums, prices for prescription drugs, et cetera, because of our privatized healthcare system. And by the way, there's a mix of private and public, which just vastly confuses our system even more. And people are tired of it. People do want Medicare for all. People do want the government to step up and ensure that people have health care. And so that's an example of a progressive policy proposal and solution to a very real problem that most Americans can get on board with. Even Republicans can get on board with this. Okay? So that's an example of this. Okay? Now, when you moralize to average people, even when they agree with you, it's still it's an uphill battle, an uphill argument in order to, get someone to give up something or make their lives intrinsically harder, especially if someone is low on resources, is lacking resources. And that's something that I think liberals have to understand as well, is that you're not going to get a poor person to make their lives harder, even if they, again, agree with you on substance and say, yes, of course I want to do something for the environment. I want to help other people, but also I need to eat. I need to have this, you've got the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, et cetera. And so you might want to do the right thing, but you also might not be able to do the right thing. So you have to keep those things in mind. Look, again, we have to change things, and we have to change things for the better. But you also have to understand that if it's more difficult, the more difficult it is, and the more radical it is, the more there will be resistance to it. And so you gotta get things in. You gotta craft policies to encourage people to do something, and to do better for the environment or better for other people, while again making it easy, as easy as possible, and economically sensible. And I think government is the only entity that's going to be able to help do that. Now, the report noted that although EV car sales typically account for a higher percentage in blue or more affluent communities, and that's a very important point, you got to remember, the two above mentioned Texas counties are not outliers. Florida's St. Johns County, Indiana's Hamilton County, North Carolina's Union County, New Jersey's Monmouth County, and California's Kern County are among other communities that backed Donald Trump in 2020 that have seen EV market share growth eclipse the national average last year, according to S&P data. That is a great example here. Now, getting back to the affluent, right? So obviously people that have more means are going to be able to switch over to these cleaner technologies quicker because they can afford to do so. So let me give you an example, the whole gas stove thing. So I understand the anger about that. I really do. Because people were told, hey, the government's going to take your gas stove. The jackbooted thugs are going to come lift your gas stove out of your house and then force you to buy a cleaner energy one. And for people who are not of means, it's like, no, I need that. But yes, I know that there are dangers. Yes, for having an open flame filled with chemicals in my house. I get it, but what else am I going to cook on? So I get the anger. And again, it's fake anger because it's not real. The government was never going to come in and take your gas stove, but people were pissed off. You don't want to have to go buy a new stove, especially if you don't have the money to do so. But the narrative was out there, and the right's really good at tying these environmental narratives to both the elites, whom they hate, and I agree with that. I share that hatred with the elites, and also tying these elites who can afford to do these things, so it's not a bother for them, and saying that these same elites who can afford to do these are going to force you to do these things because that you can't afford it. You're going to have to buy something that you don't want to buy or can't afford to buy, or you're going to have to give something up. And people, again, in this country, a lot of Americans barely able to make it by are being told by people who are liars and grifters, etc., that the government is going to force you to do something or give something up that's making your life bearable. And it's like, hell no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to vote for Democrats then. I'm going to vote for Republicans. Now, they may be evil, but at least they're not trying to take away my gas stove. So I get it. And what we need to do a better job of on the left is to counter those narratives and to try to make things easier for people and do the right thing. And that's where the government can actually step in and do things. For example, if you want more people, let's just use the EVs as an example, right? If you wanted to replace gas cars, okay? How about you have a system where you can allow anybody to trade in a gas car and get an EV on the spot? No strings attached. 1-for-1 trade. Whatever you bring in the most beat up piece of crap gas, car, and you get a brand new shiny EV. Now, I say that and people are like, that's insane. Why would you do that? Because it's smart. If you're actually trying to do something and encourage a particular type of behavior, then if you have a program like this, of course people would take advantage of it. That's the whole point. You want to encourage people to drive, for example, EVs, as the Biden administration wants to. Well, then you would have such a program. It's essentially kind of like a gun buyback program, except that, instead of like just taking the gun and giving you money, it'd be, taking your car and giving you a better, newer car that's actually more energy efficient and doesn't take gas. I mean, again, that's a heavy investment, but that is something that only the government could do. And of course, it costs money, obviously. And of course, there'd have to be a lot of updates to the power grid, but no other entity. And this just shows the power that government could do if it were actually in the hands of people who were willing to do these things. Okay? They could do this on a scale necessary to, again, make a difference in that. And I'm not saying differences in climate change because, again, we already know the major drivers of climate change. And, a lot of it's agriculture, a lot of it's the military, a lot of it is, of course, corporations like defense contractors, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that. I'm just saying that this is an example of, you could call it social engineering if you want. But yeah, using incentives and disincentives. It would make sense. Now, that said, now the government not going to do it. The best they can do is tax credits, but that, and of course the fact that gas prices keep going up due to inflation and greed, is getting even anti-woke conservatives on board to buy EVs, and that's interesting. I mean, look, now the Washington Post article also notes that conservative support for green energy isn't totally new. According to Neil Ferris, a left-leaning photographer and EV enthusiast in Dallas who promotes vehicles at auto shows, he says, one of the people I quote a lot is T. Boone Pickens. That's the oil billionaire and Republican donor. He said, quote, yeah, let's do solar, let's do wind, because if we do, then the oil will last longer. Well, I mean, that's weird. Look, at the end of the day, we got to start doing something. Whether it be, small things. I know that in this case, things like the plastic straws or whatever, not going to really make a big difference, right? And so, but we have to do at least some things in order to make some sort of impact. It's not going to be much, again, because we know the major drivers of climate change. But if we can start to try to push for more sustainability and, maybe not putting so much carbon out into the atmosphere, and push our government officials to actually start to, do more things to encourage, better, I guess, consumerism. Because like it or not, and I don't, we're kind of stuck in this system. And so until that changes, it doesn't really do any good to sit there and bitch about the system that we're stuck in if we're not actually changing the system. You see what I mean? And so doing the best that we can within this until that changes, that's really what we can do. And so, look, I'll take whatever small wins I can get. If Republicans are not rolling coal anymore and are starting to switch to at least slightly better modes of transportation, I'll take it. It's the best. Take the W if you can.